Greetings from Mesa United Methodist Church of Albuquerque, New Mexico. We hope this message will be meaningful and relevant to your life and your relationship with God. We invite you to join us for worship on Sunday mornings. Our traditional service is at 8:30 a.m. and at 11 a.m. we gather for contemporary worship. More information may be found at our website, mesaviewumc.com. Now may you be blessed through the reading and hearing of God's holy word. The gospel reading this morning comes to us from the Gospel according to John from the 21st chapter. After these things, Jesus showed himself again to the disciples by the Sea of Tiberias, and he showed himself in this way. Gathered there together were Simon Peter, Thomas called the twin, Nathanael of Cana in Galilee, the sons of Zebedee, and two others of his disciples. Simon Peter said to them, "I am going fishing." They said to him, "We will go with you." They went out and got in the boat, but that night they caught nothing. Just after daybreak, Jesus stood on the beach, but the disciples did not know that it was Jesus. Jesus said to them, "Children, have you no fish?" They answered him, "No." And he said to them, "Cast the net to the right side of the boat, and you will find some." So they cast it, and now they were not able to haul it in because there were so many fish. That disciple, whom Jesus loved, said to Peter, "It is the Lord." When Simon Peter heard that it was the Lord, he put on some clothes, for he was naked, and jumped into the sea. But the other disciples came in the boat, dragging the net full of fish, for they were not far from the land, only about 100 yards off. When they had gone ashore, they saw a charcoal fire there with fish on it, and bread. Jesus said to them, "Bring some of the fish that you have just caught." So Simon Peter went aboard and hauled the net ashore full of large fish, 153 of them. And though there were so many, the net was not torn. Today marks the end of my second year, or the beginning of my third year here at Mesa View, depending on how you want to look at it. And so today I give sort of a state of the church address. Where have we been and where are we going? First, I'd like to begin by thanking all of the volunteers who help support this church in so many ways. We could not do the work that we do without all of you. In particular, I'd like to thank the members of the Staff Parish Relations Committee, a couple of other key leaders, and also the prayer partners who were lifting me up in prayer this year, because this was by far my hardest year in ministry. Every organization, churches, businesses have sort of ups and downs. You go like this, and we sort of hit that bottom of that trough this year, but now we're making our way back up the other side. Our attendance has seen continual increases from January up until last month, but come the summertime, we always expect attendance is going to drop off a little bit. And so let me remind you that your presence is important during the summer, not necessarily just because of numbers. Numbers are important, but that's not the only reason. But, we're kind of small in numbers. It's a lot funner when there's 60 or 70 of us here than when there's 30 of us. So if you see the people who aren't here, give them a call and say, "We missed you in worship today. It would have been great if you had been with us." Now, I was appointed by the bishop to Mesa View for many reasons, but the biggest one was to get our financial life in order. Many churches approach communicating about their finances using the mushroom communication model. Does anybody know what the mushroom communication model is? Keep everybody in the dark and full of manure. Hopefully you know that's not the way I like to communicate. And the truth is we are doing better. I would like to say that all of our financial problems are over and everything is great. I'd like to be able to say that, but I can't. But we're doing better. We didn't get to where we were in a couple of years, and we're not going to get out of it in a couple of years. If you were reading the newsletter, our last financial report was a little bleak. The last update I received from Don Coates, who's the chair of our finance committee, said that we were expected to be about $2,000 in the hole at the end of June. So just because you're gone doesn't mean you get to stop giving. Our bills keep coming in. We still do the work of the church even throughout the summer. But here is the good news. Our electronic giving options have helped create a stable, reliable source of income that we can count on every single month, and that helps us out. And I would strongly encourage you, if you have not signed up for electronic giving, to do that. If you're going to be away for the summer, you can do it just for the week that you will be gone, and to thank you for everyone who has signed up. The good news is that for maybe the first time, but definitely for the first time in a long time, This year we created an emergency fund, a savings account. And so when we entered into the summer months, we had $5,000 sitting in that account. So and if we don't get money to cover that $2,000 gap, we have money set aside that will help get us through the lean summer months. The good news is that last month we paid off the loan that we had to John Deere for our lawnmower. And this month we paid off the $6,000 loan that we took out from the conference to help cover the gap on the Raise the Roof campaign to fix the roof on this building and the administration building. The good news is that when we started here 2 years ago, we had a $10,000 debt in back pension obligations for the annual conference, and that amount will be paid off in October. These are things you can applaud for. You don't have to sit back. The good news is that we refinanced our mortgage this past year, which freed up much money that we were sending to pay for our debt retirements. And we ended up we set some of that money, what we were going to do aside for separate things, but we ended up having to put a new HVAC units, air conditioning and heating, into the annex building. That cost us $7,000. We paid for that in cash because of what we are working on. Doing that then allowed us to rent that out to the YMCA. So not only is the annex giving us now generating income for us, but it's also continuing to serve the community. They are serving the same mission that we are called to do in reaching out to those who are in need. We still have the mortgage debt out there, and it still hangs over top of us. It's about $800,000. And we need to sort of think about some creative ways that we begin to try and deal with that reality. Some of that will be done through estate planning, by people leaving gifts to the church in your wills. Linda and I both have wills in which we leave a portion of our estates to the church. I would encourage you to consider doing that as well. If you would like assistance in setting that up or have questions, I'd be happy to help you or put you in contact with an attorney who can do that work for you. But we still have other major expenditures out there. We need to do some work on the HVAC units in this building. We have set aside about $4,000 of work that we need to do in the fall. Otherwise, it's going to get really cold in here during the winter. But more importantly, we know we have to replace those units sooner rather than later. We are hoping to be able to get about 3 years down the line of the current units, and it's going to cost us somewhere between $30,000 and $40,000 to buy 5 new units for this building. It would behoove us at the same time that we're doing that to replace the roof on this building, because otherwise we'll have to take the units back off, which will cost about $10,000 to bring in the crane to do that. So we should do those both at the same time. So we're looking at $60,000 to $70,000 expense sometime in the next 2 to 3 years that we're going to have to come up with. And so we're going to have to figure out how is it we're going to try and get that done. But our finances don't drive our decisions, or at least they don't drive most of our decisions. They're not the major primary actor in how we decide what we do. Our decisions are decided by what God is calling us to do and who God is calling us to be. And when we do that, God will provide. The resources will be there for us to do the things that we have to do. I'm also glad to say that we are tithing our budget and trusting that God is going to fill that in. We asked you to tithe to the church, and so we as a church are tithing to the general church to do the greater work that we do through the annual and the general conference. John Foley, who is the chair of our trustees, and the other members of the trustees have been doing a fantastic job in doing some significant work on the buildings. As I already said, we replaced the HVAC units in the annex. We also did the painting and some other repairs in that building before the Y moved in. We painted most of the classrooms in the education administration building. We're finishing up painting all the classrooms in this building. We completely redid the men's bathroom in the administration building, which if you ever went in there before, you'll know is a great thing because it was in terrible condition. We are doing painting on the parking lots, and Sam Ray, as part of his Eagle projects, installed new rock around the education building and also installed 3 new crosses on the hill by the ponds. We will be installing new fence around the playgrounds here in this building in the next month or so. We have new ADA compliant signs in the main building, a new television screen in the main administration building, which has announcements and also room locations for where things are taking place. New banners outside of the worship center, so when people come for the first time, they have an idea where it is that they're supposed to go for worship. And we have a new website. Those might not seem like big things in the overall operation of the church, and they're not, but churches have lots of signs, besides for the ones that say what buildings are. And one of those signs is whether you care for your property. And if you don't take care of the buildings and there's piles of trash everywhere, people are like, well, how can I trust them to give me the gospel message when they don't take care of these small things? So I am grateful for many of you who are also helping and do a lot of that work. We still have to do something with this corner and with the pond, whatever it is that we decide to do there, but it's more than just saying we're going to dredge it out or just let it fill back up with water, because it's going to be something we just end up throwing money at every single year just to maintain it. So what we need to do is to create a master plan for what that corner is going to look like. I would still love to see a handicap accessible playground so that we can say to our neighbors who have children in wheelchairs or other handicaps, here's a place where they can come and join with the other kids in the community, in the neighborhood, to be able to play together. But to do that, to do the other things that have been suggested, we need a master plan. And so if you have some extra money you have set aside and you thought, this would be great for a capital expense, a capital campaign, talk with me about how we hire a landscape architect. Because once we have a plan done, then I can start raising other money for things, including from corporate sponsors for something like a handicap accessible playgrounds. But we also need to think about what we do about the back piece of the property and have a master plan for that. There's lots of ideas, some great ideas, intriguing ideas that have been thrown around. Possibility of a community garden back there, possibility of constructing an adult daycare facility for people who are caring for parents or partners who cannot stay at home by themselves during the day. There's lots of dreams that we have about what we could be doing, and dreams are important, because if we stop dreaming of possibilities, we should just shut the doors. Because as soon as we stop dreaming, we shut off all potential areas of a future for us. But we also need to listen to what God is calling for us, to see the dreams and the visions that God has set out. Now, one of the comments that we got a lot of in the Readiness 360 survey was about a youth group. So several things on that. Getting a youth group is not a silver bullet. As soon as we start a youth group, we're not going to have 600 people show up because it's going to solve all of our problems. It's one piece of the entire puzzle of what it is that we need to do. Second, we don't have a youth group not for lack of interest or a lack of wanting to do it. It was how do we get about doing that and who is going to lead that activity. But I am happy to report that Leanna and I have been talking about her role here at the church and expanding that, and she has agreed to take on a youth group starting in the fall. But she can't do it alone. If we say that we need a youth group, the we here is not you or me or Leanna. The we is we. So if we want a youth group, we need to step up and support that. It could be that you give just one day. It could be that you give a meal. It could be that you lead one Bible study. You don't have to give, this is not a life sentence, or you saying, I'm going to be there every single week for every single meeting. Just one time to help out our youth is enough to help us get by. If we want a youth group, it's something we have to do together. We are also in conversation about starting a young adult group and also a group for single mothers in our community. Now, when it comes to worship, we do a fairly good job. Can we do it better? Yeah, we can. There's always room for improvement. That's one of the reasons why we have the worship survey out, is to find out where we can do things better. We will be installing a new worship software in the next few weeks, which for most of you, you won't see any significant difference on what gets projected, but it'll give us greater flexibility and more possibilities of things that we can do in worship. It'll be a big change for those who are sort of working in the sound booth and getting things done. We do have 2 projectors that were donated to us. One of them got installed much quicker than we thought when our other projector stopped working, so that one needs some tweaks to get it to work up there. But we hope to install another one on this side, so we'll have projection on both sides of the wall. But obviously you see there's no mounting bracket or anything up there, and so it's going to take some thought and planning and some expense to figure out where to do that. And we also want to have one projecting to the back, which for everybody who's looking forward is not a big deal, but for the band and the choir and those of us who stand looking this way, to see what's going on behind us will be a huge advantage. We have begun recording the sermons or making them available, but we need to work on recording the entirety of the service. So the music is something that we can put out, which we can't do currently the way the soundboard is configured. We would like to start videotaping all those services, but again, it's not something we just go out and buy a video camera and say all of a sudden it works. We need to work it into the greater plan and what we already have in place and where we want to be moving to. And most importantly, we are working on planning for the creation of a new weeknight worship service, hopefully starting in the fall. We'll be holding another planning session this Wednesday. If you would like to provide your inputs on what that service might look like, or provide your volunteer and say, I'd like to participate in some way, join us on Wednesday evening. We hope that that service will allow us to reach out to people who are not available to worship on Sunday mornings, and also for those who are saying, I don't want to show up at a service for people who've been worshiping together for 600 years. How do I fit into that piece? Versus saying, we have a brand new worship service. They have identity and belonging right from the start. Al Gray and the mission team have been doing a fantastic work in the areas that they are doing. This past year, we started our own food pantry to go along with the mobile food pantry that we do once a month. We hosted a meal on Thanksgiving to reach out to those in need. We hope to build on that in this coming year. We've given more than $5,000 to our Clean Water Project in Kenya this past year. And as I said earlier, for the McCurdy Ministries, their summer school program in Espanola, more than half of the school supplies that were donated for that came from this congregation. You can applaud at this point too, because you should celebrate the way we are reaching out to help those who are in need, but that's just the beginning. There's just so much more that we can still be doing. And it's not just in service. We need to think about how we reach beyond our walls, that everything doesn't have to take place here at the church. That we can hold committee meetings, we can hold Christian formation classes, we can hold small groups in our homes, we can hold them at Starbucks down the street, we can hold them at McDonald's, wherever it might be, to reach out and say, this is not an enclave that we have to be locked into, that we can be working beyond our boundaries. Then finally, there is the Healthy Church Initiative, which I'm grateful that the Leadership Council decided to undertake, and I'm grateful for all the members of the HCI team who've been doing that work. It sparked a lot of conversation in lots of different ways around the congregation. There are some of the books that we have been reading are available for free on the back table. I invite you to pick one of those up. And I know that many people still have no idea what Healthy Church Initiative is or what we're going to do, and that's okay. We're going to try to keep giving more information out as it comes up, but put August 21st, 22nd, and 23rd on your calendar. That will be our evaluation weekend, and we'll have some training that will go on as a part of that. But the main purpose of HCI is to give us momentum, to boost what we're already doing, and to make some of that better, and to say, if you just did this piece over here, that would help improve what you're already working on. I think one of the biggest questions that we as a team have come up with and have struggled with is to answer the question, what does it mean to be a disciple? How are we as a church going to say what a disciple is and what does a disciple do? And then how do we engage people in that process? How do brand new people who are walking through these doors get engaged in the different things that are going on at the church? And how do the people who have been here for 600 years get engaged and still walk that process of discipleship? And we need to answer the question is, who and what are we called to be by God? And make that our driving force so that everything gets evaluated by this, and we can say that we are doing this mission project so that we can, whatever it might be. We gather and worship so that we have this class so that we can. Everything is driven toward the central goal of understanding who God has called us to be. So I hope that in hearing some of this, you're sort of excited about what's happening and what's still to happen, because I didn't begin to tell you about all the things, my list that I was putting together this week, of the things we accomplished in this past year, the things that we're working on either in planning or just in conversation about where we're going in the future. But let's be honest. Change is hard. It is. It's hard for everybody. Nobody really likes change. And the 7 deadly words for a church are, that's the way we've always done it. Or it could be, we tried that and it didn't work. As soon as we start saying those things, we're on that slippery slope down the opposite way. And I think that's what that gospel passage that we heard this morning from John, why it's so important. Because the disciples are out there fishing. They've been out there all night on the Sea of Tiberias, and they haven't caught anything. And they're coming into the shore, and they see this guy there. They don't know yet that he's Jesus. He says, "Did you catch anything?" They're like, "No." And then Jesus says something to them, and it took me a while in hearing this story till I finally caught it. Maybe you're much smarter than I am, and you caught it right away. And that is that Jesus doesn't say to them, "Cast your nets in and try it again." Jesus says, "Cast your net on the right side of the boat, and there you'll find the fish." And so what I imagine is the disciples have been out there all night long fishing on the left side of the boat, either because that's the way they always did it, it's more comfortable. I don't really know anything about commercial fishing with nets. Maybe that's just the easier way to go. It's hard to do the opposite side. But I just imagine they keep throwing their net over the left-hand side of the boat and pulling it up empty, empty, empty every single time. And they keep getting the same results. And so they come back in with no fish in the boats. And Jesus says, try it a different way. He doesn't say, go to another area of the lake and you'll find fish there. Or, let's give up on the Sea of Tiberias. Let's go over to the Sea of Galilee. There's really good fishing there. Jesus says, stop fishing on the left side of the boat. Let's fish on the right side. And when they do, they pull up a huge batch of fish. Just changing the side of the boat made all the difference. So I've wanted to do this for a long time. We get stuck in familiar patterns. Sometimes because they're comfortable. Sometimes we don't even think about it. It's just what happens. And one of the things that we get stuck about is where we sit. And we come in and we sit in the same seats. The churches are in different seats this time, and I'm grateful for that. But we sort of get locked in. This is my place. And so we're going to switch it up this morning. And if you're sitting on this side, I want you to move over to this side of the sanctuary. And if you're sitting on this side, to move over to this side. You can switch front back as well if you'd like, but just switch sides at the very least. Yeah, Scott says it feels really weird. It's a little uncomfortable, isn't it? Actually, at the 8:30 service, we did that, and Dave Taylor came over and sat in my chair. And then I was like, oh, he's sitting in my chair. What am I going to do? We get stuck. But sitting in a different place gives you a different perspective, a different way of looking at things. It's saying, let's stop fishing on the left-hand side and decide to cast our nets to the right. Just one little thing makes all the difference in the world sometimes. So these are standard Lego blocks, the most popular brick that Lego makes. And if I was to give 6 of these to most of you, most of us are probably going to put them together in the same sort of way. Many of us are going to put them together exactly like this. We're just going to stack them straight up. And we do this in the church a lot. We take our Legos and we just stack them together. But if somebody new comes in, where they fit into that stack? They can either go on the top or the bottom. There's not much other place. If somebody says, I have a new program, where is it going to fit? Well, either has to fit on the top or the bottom because there's no other place for it to go. And if it doesn't fit there, it's going to go somewhere else. But what if we stack our bricks something like this? Now where's a new program or a new person going to fit? There's lots of means for entry, lots of ways they can connect that they can't connect in this. And this isn't the only way it has to be done. Because just a wild guess, how many different ways, according to Lego, how many different ways can you assemble 6 standard Lego blocks? Millions. The actual number is, I have to switch forward here, and you can put up the slide, 915,103,765. You can assemble 6 Lego bricks more than 915 million ways. And so we come in and say, no, you have to do this, and you have to fit into this. What if we say, no, there's 915 million ways you can fit into the church and things we can do and ways we can connect with our community. We have lots of challenges and lots of opportunities before us. And for many of the things that we want to do, the old ways just don't work anymore. The world's changed. It's just the reality. And we have to face that reality. But instead of either doing the same thing time and time again and getting the same results, casting our nets to the left-hand side of the boat and having them come up empty, or giving up and say, we didn't catch anything, let's just go into the shore and be done, perhaps we just need to learn how to cast our nets to the other side. And that means that we have to be willing to fail. Because in studies of growing churches and declining churches, which churches fail the most? Growing churches, right. Because they're trying new things. They're doing new things. Declining churches aren't doing anything they can fail at, other than being the church. Growing churches fail a lot because they're trying new things. Does anybody know what WD-40 stands for? Right, water displacement, and was the 40th attempt. It could have been WD-38, but it's WD-40 because they failed 39 other times to create a water displacement liquid to do what they needed it to do. And so it's WD-40 because they failed before. We have to be open to failure, to take the risks that come with that, not because we want to fail, and not about pointing fingers when something does fail, but saying, yeah, that didn't work. What can we learn from that? To either do something different or to make a tweak so it'll be successful next time or the 40th time. We have to be open to trying new things. Because I've said before, no one ever talks about taking a leap of safety. Right? We take leaps of faith. We take leaps of faith because we don't know what's out there. That means that we have to be open to taking risks. To say, we're going to try something new. We're going to create a new future in front of us. And maybe just once we're going to cast our net to the other side of the boat and take a risk in faith. Because what is the best year that this church has ever had? Next year. Next year is the best year this church has ever had. I pray that it will be so, my brothers and sisters. Amen.